Hello again. We are back with another devotion. We are on the 9th devotion of these 40 days of looking unto Jesus. And today we're looking at Jesus as the door. In John chapter 10, verse 7, we'll start there and we'll read a few verses down to get this context. All right, so this is what it says. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door, he says. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I have come that they might have life, that they might have it more abundantly. I included that last verse in there because that's a verse we know very well. And it's very important to see the context of that verse. It's related to the idea of Jesus being the door of the sheep. That's very important. So notice also that this wasn't one of the I am declarations that are found in the Gospel of John. Twice he says it here, I am the door of the sheep, and I am the door. That I am is tied all the way back to the Old Testament, Moses at the burning bush. Who shall I say that sends me? And he said, I am that I am. He was always called the I am. And so Jesus uses this term on purpose. I am the door of the sheep. Also notice that it's the definite article, the. It's the door, not a door. And that's also very important to see. So this word door describes an entrance, an opening, and a closing. A portal, if you will. It can be translated easily as portal, and understood as that. Think of Revelation chapter 4. When John says, I saw a door in heaven open, a portal. That's the idea. And that would make more sense, obviously, when we're looking at it in Revelation, a portal. And when speaking of spiritual entrance, a portal is the best way to see it and think of it. Now, only in the Gospel of John does this term become a title concerning Christ. Here, it conveys exclusivity. One authorized entry. He's the door. It conveys security, safety within the fold that enter through that door. And then it conveys provision. They find pasture and are fed. So by portraying himself as the sole legitimate portal, Jesus affirms the unity of revelation of himself and redemption that comes from him. Access, and I want you to hear this statement, access to God is mediated through his incarnate Son alone, through Jesus alone. Also hear this statement, the church is not the door to Jesus. Jesus is the door to the church. Right? Okay. Now, let me give you a little background on these, on this terminology where he's describing, because it is shepherd terminology as he speaks in shepherd terminology as well, especially in verses 1 through 6. And if you read in context, you probably have already read verses 1 through 6 and maybe saw a difference in the illustrations. All right. So here's why. There were two types of sheep pens in that day. One was more public in cities and in villages. They were large enough to hold several flocks of sheep. And the gates, or the doors, the gates of these were guarded by a porter who guarded the gate at night and admitted the shepherd's entrance in the morning. And then the shepherd would come in and call their sheep who knew their voice. So when a shepherd would come in where several flocks were, he would call their names And those sheep that belonged to him would all run to him because they knew his voice. And if you want to, and I encourage you to read verses 1 through 6, because that's where you see that it connects to this type of sheep pen when Jesus was giving that illustration in verses 1 through 6. But in the one that we just read, it speaks of a different type of sheep pen. The second kind of sheep pen was in the rural area and it was not public. This type of sheep pen was nothing but rocks built up to form a wall all around, kind of a rectangular shape, and then there was one opening, but it had no gate. It was just an opening. Now I want you to catch this. At night, the shepherd would lay across the opening to keep the sheep in safe and keep wild animals out. Isn't that a beautiful picture? See, during the day, he would also stand at the opening, serving as a gate where the sheep could go in and out and find pasture under his watchful eye. They could go out and find pasture under his watchful eye, or if they were afraid to go out, they could stay inside the enclosed and still find pasture there. But the shepherd was always there. Isn't that a beautiful picture? And that's exactly what it means. Literally, the shepherd becomes the door. He's the door. And that's a beautiful picture. And this is what Jesus was speaking of. So he says, I am the door of the sheep. And of course, one of the pictures also that we have is that he literally laid down his life for the sheep, right? So this is what Jesus is saying. This is what he's telling you and me. I place myself between you and every threat, between you and every lie, between you and every thief of your peace. I want to repeat this because I want you to catch this. And you understand Jesus as the door. It's not just about what we think of as he's salvation, we go through him. It's more than that. He cares for us. Him being the door is exclusively tied to also him being the shepherd, right? He places himself between you and every threat, between you and every lie, between you and every thief of your peace. He is a door that stands between you and yesterday. You see, some thresholds are not about entering something new. They're about leaving something old. Do you hear that? When we enter in through the door of Christ, we're also leaving something old, a wound, a habit, a shame, a fear, a season that has run its course but is no longer relevant in our life. Jesus stands at that doorway also. He is the door that closes behind you with mercy and opens before you with hope. That is Jesus as the door. Now, this particular devotion has a little homework. I want you to also read and look at Psalm 118 and verse 20 in particular. And I'm going to read what verse 20 says. Verse 20 says, "This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous will enter through it." Now, that by itself is powerful enough to see that it connects to Jesus as being the door. But how do we know that that psalm was talking about Jesus at the door? Well, that's the homework. Go look at Psalm 118 and read the rest of that. Read the rest of those verses, and you will see just exactly who this gate is by what else it says. Because it also connects, that particular psalm also connects Jesus with another title that we have talked about in our devotions, and that is Jesus as cornerstone. So check that out. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face towards you and give you peace. God bless you. We'll see you back tomorrow.